Welcome everybody, so I am back and bringing you guys a brand new movie review, and this is going to be for Star Wars Attack of the Clones. So if you see an image like the one back in my background, that is what we're going to be discussing. This movie stars Hayden Christensen as Anakin Skywalker, Obi-Wan Kenobi is played by Ewan McGregor, Samuel L. Jackson as Mace Windu, Ian McDiarmid as Emperor Palpatine, as well as Natalie Portman as Padme Amidala. This movie is pretty much a movie about an assassination attempt by Jango Fett to take out Padme Amidala. You see this first in the opening of the film, where that silver spaceship is kind of flying through the city streets, and you got like floating buildings and stuff, and it's attacked. I think it's Coruscant. She's attacked on the landing platform. They all rush her into sort of the Senate room, and that is where you kind of discuss the plot and attempt to assassinate by Jango Fett. See you late at night. Obi-Wan Kenobi and Anakin Skywalker, played by Hayden Christensen and Ewan McGregor, are assigned to kind of protect her. This all fails miserably when Jango Fett's assassin targets Padme Amidala while she's sleeping, sends in a couple creatures to try and kill her, but Anakin Skywalker senses that she's in danger. He chops both of these creatures down, and they eventually find the dart that was used to try and kill Padme Amidala. Obi-Wan Kenobi leaping out of a skyscraper window and attempt to go after the person that attempted to assassinate her. This eventually leads to Obi-Wan Kenobi and Anakin Skywalker meeting up as he falls from a very, very high height and lands on Anakin Skywalker's speeder. This chase sequence then leads to Anakin leaping onto the assassin's vehicle, which leads to them crashing to the ground. They eventually go to this sort of cantina that is resemblance to that of the first cantina in Star Wars A New Hope, which I really did like this scene. You see Anakin Skywalker and Obi-Wan Kenobi, they're on the hunt for this assassin. Obi-Wan Kenobi talks to this guy that's trying to sell Obi-Wan Kenobi death sticks, similar to that of the death sticks in the first movie. He's like, you want to go home and rethink your life. This movie has a lot of really cool one-liners in this film, especially the ones that they bring back from the other movies, such as, I have a bad feeling about this, which they do multiple times in this film, as well as Revenge of the Sith. This leads to them figuring out that Jango Fett is actually responsible for this. He's also the one that kind of erases sort of a planet that Obi-Wan Kenobi is trying to find later on in the film from existence. Obi-Wan Kenobi goes to the center of the galaxy in order to try and track down that missing planet, where he meets up with Count Dooku. Meanwhile, you have this other side plot where you see Hayden Christensen is tasked with keeping Natalie Portman's Padme Amidala safe. They take it to another planet away from all this chaos that's going on within, Jedi Temple. Natalie Portman and Hayden Christensen, you see their kind of involvement together kind of grow over time. Padme becoming, from a naive woman to this powerful woman within the Senate. She is seducing basically Anakin Skywalker within this film. Anakin Skywalker's relationship with Padme Amidala is intensely forbidden within the Jedi Order, which I don't understand why the Jedi Order would forbid people from falling in love, but I guess this is this thing about growing attached to people within the Star Wars universe, that attachment leads to jealousy, and jealousy leads to the dark side, all that stuff that Yoda explains within the third film. You see that Natalie Portman is wearing these scantily clad clothing, and you can kind of understand why Hayden Christensen's character would actually fall in love with her when she's kind of doing that with him throughout most of this film, even though they specifically say that one of the main characters specifically says that I'd be far more worried about her doing something than him doing something, which is exactly the case. This movie then leads to Obi-Wan Kenobi tracking down Jango Fett. You see the formation of the clone army, which is later used by Emperor Palpatine to kind of take over the Jedi Temple in the later films, as well as Revenge of the Sith. Jango Fett being a clone, having clones that are made out of the likeness of him, which these alien creatures that resemble the gray aliens from, UFO Legends and stuff, the Star Wars creators in the behind the scenes specifically said that they created these creatures to kind of resemble that of the alien greys. There's an awesome fight sequence that takes place on this platform, and it's on this sort of water world type of planet. You see rain and kind of the waves crashing up against it, and Jango Fett and Obi-Wan Kenobi are just kind of going at it, and it's just this awesome spectacle of an action sequence. Like throughout this movie, you see really cool, awesome lightsaber fights, and this movie definitely delivers on that. And there's even one that takes place in a coliseum on Geonosia, where Anakin Skywalker, Obi-Wan, and Natalie Portman are kind of tied up to pillars, and they're pretty much forced to fight like in a gladiatorial arena. And you see this sort of the monsters that are going after them, and this eventually leads to the Republic kind of invading that area and taking over, and you see them kind of rescue Obi-Wan Kenobi as well as Natalie Portman and Hayden Christensen's character. And you see the troubled past between Hayden Christensen kind of grow, where he's kind of waking up in his sleep with nightmares, especially of his mother Shmi getting killed by sand people. He eventually goes to the planet where he tries to rescue Shmi. He finds her dead and pretty much tied up and beaten, and this leads him to a rage where he pretty much kills everybody, which he eventually tells Natalie Portman's character later on within the film. This kind of brings about his turn to the dark side, and you see a little bit of that within this movie, where Anakin Skywalker is constantly wanting more. He's wanting more power, he's wanting wealth, he's wanting more positions within the Jedi Order, which Samuel L. Jackson pretty much forbids him from being the rank of Jedi within the Jedi Order, but he's still able to serve, which he even states is unfair, and he doesn't understand how that you could be a Jedi but not be able to, or you could serve as a Jedi in the Jedi Temple but not be the rank of Jedi Master. And Samuel L. Jackson saying, take a seat, young Skywalker, which has become a meme now. And honestly, this movie is freaking great. Like, I think the visual effects in this movie, the blend of CG and, sort sort of the practical effects really do help this film. This movie used a lot of more practical effects than some of the later films in the franchise, which, like I said before, the mark of a great movie is one that uses practical and CG well. There's some Easter eggs in this film where when you see Anakin and Obi-Wan go to sort of the Senate area, there's a Millennium Falcon that kind of flies by the screen, a bunch of other, ships from, the other movies and stuff like that you kind of see in the background, which I always kind of recognize right when I'm watching this movie. There's an awesome sequence that takes place between Anakin Skywalker and Natalie Portman's character Padme Amidala, where they're kind of running on a conveyor belt and you got that machine kind of smashing parts and stuff, and they're trying to kill Anakin Skywalker and Obi-Wan as they're kind of chasing down Count Dooku. Anakin Skywalker's hand gets kind of clamped into one of them and he kind of breaks out and you see his lightsaber kind of get cut in half, which I have the lightsaber for Anakin Skywalker in the background here behind my green screen. And also Natalie Portman's character throughout that scene is constantly dodging sort of these machines and eventually gets caught in sort of one of these molten lava buckets, and then you see R2-D2 in the background kind of manipulating it so that she doesn't get killed. There's a bunch of lightsaber battles in this film, like I said before, within the Colosseum, as well as that fight sequence that takes place in the end with Count Dooku and Obi-Wan and Anakin Skywalker. That is really cool, especially considering you see how that plays out within Revenge of the Sith, where Anakin Skywalker pretty much cuts off his head, spoiler alert, but by now you should probably have seen that movie, so I don't know why it would be considered a spoiler alert. But you also got that lightsaber fight between Jango Fett and Obi-Wan Kenobi, which I really like. I think that battle sequence is really cool, especially since it leads to a chase sequence between Obi-Wan's ship and the Slave One out in space in a sort of an asteroid field. This movie's got a bunch of one-liners, which, like I said before, mark of a good movie is one that you're thinking about even after, the movie is pretty much finished and you're kind of leaving the cinema and you kind of are quoting sort of the one-liners in this film, which there's definitely a lot of. Like, I don't see how anybody can watch the Star Wars prequels and not like Attack of the Clones and Revenge of the Sith. Like, there are things I like about the Phantom Menace, such as the Darth Maul duel, but I think that is one of the weaker films in the franchise. The other two, the later film, are really great, especially seeing how all this is kind of leading up toward the final film in the franchise, which is Revenge of the Sith. And especially since you get pretty much everything that you want in a Star Wars movie. You get lightsaber battles, you get, creatures, especially with the gladiatorial arena sequence that you see with Obi-Wan Kenobi, Padme, and Hayden Christensen's character. You see a bunch of starship battles and stuff like that, which you see in this film. Like, everything that you could possibly want in Star Wars movies in here. So I would have to give Star Wars Attack of the Clones about a B. It's definitely not an A caliber like Revenge of the Sith was, because I think Revenge of the Sith is one of the better ones in the franchise. You see the rise and fall of Anakin Skywalker in that movie, whereas this one you're kind of just building up towards that. In this movie you got a lot of really cool action sequences in it. So I would have to give Star Wars Attack of the Clones, like I said before, a B. I definitely do think this movie sort of deserves that B+ rating. I know a lot of people that grew up with the original trilogy and the prequels like me would kind of give it that B+ rating as well. So that is my opinions. I know that a lot of other people have different mixed reviews about this movie, and some people really don't like this movie and they think that 1 and 2 are really bad, but being that I'm a huge prequel fan, I really do think that this movie deserves that sort of B+, especially since all the actors do a really good job. You've got Ewan McGregor, who's awesome in everything. You've got Samuel L. Jackson, who's also awesome in everything. Hayden Christensen's lines, like "I hate Sam," which has become a meme as well, is kind of cringy and lame. It seems like Hayden Christensen's character was not given a lot of the really cool lines like all the rest of the characters within this franchise were, but either way, I still really do find some value within this film. I know this movie has some pretty cringy lines and stuff like that, but there are some really good ones in there, so hopefully people can forgive this movie for that. I know George Lucas was not said no to in a lot of the writing and script writing and a lot of the creation of this film, but either way, it still deserves sort of a B+ rating. So that is my thoughts and opinions. Hopefully you guys like this review of Star Wars Attack of the Clones. Leave the comments section in the comments below of what you think is your favorite Star Wars film in the prequel franchise. And as always, guys, rate, comment, subscribe, and I'll definitely see you guys in the next video. Peace.